Do-do-do-do, it's Chemdork.
Hello everyone, this is Chemdork, and welcome to episode 3 of our Kerbal Space Program playthrough. So last episode, well, we got into space, went around a thing known as the planet Kerbin, which is called orbiting. That was a pretty good accomplishment. This time we're going to do something with our orbit. But before we do that, we're going to stare at this little thing right here and launch it. This is a little thing I made because we are going to use it to satisfy a contract. We accepted the testing of a stack decoupler at the end of last episode, I believe. So this thing is just a simple thing really meant to test this guy. Very important to check the staging, though, before you do this, otherwise you will have problems. So we'll wait for this to actually get to the point where I can, well, here, open the chute, and then let's wait for this thing to land. While we are, let's talk a little bit about today's episode. Well, today we are going to... Hey, look at that. Cool. Okay, let's settle through the staging, and we are good to go. Awesome. So we're going to go to the moon, and we're going to use maneuver nodes also to get there. So maneuver nodes are going to allow us to plan what we do to our orbit. So last episode we went into orbit, and then we learned what we can do to our orbit, see if we can play with our orbit and move it in the way in which it'll get us to the moon. So, yep, but first we had to accept this contract and do a whole bunch of things, and actually, while I am here, I can take that debris and recover it, get a little money and whatnot back from it, which is kind of cool. So we also have some science left over, so let's go ahead and spend that. What are we going to get, though? Well, I think we're going to need advanced rocketry. It gives us a little bigger fuel tank, which is going to give us the ability, just like before, to get the same amount of fuel with less parts. And we're gonna spend some money on we're gonna spend some science on this liquid fuel engine, the Terrier fuel engine. From last episode, we also went over some of the features, the stats on the engines, and kind of how to read them. Well, now we know that this one has really good ISP, or is very efficient in space. Really, really, really not efficient in atmosphere. It is a pretty weak engine overall, very weak in atmosphere, but not as bad in space. This is actually really, really efficient way of getting around with this type of rocket we're going to build. So this general construction's not as useful. This is very useful, these struts, but I don't want to waste parts on struts right now until we upgrade our VAB. So let's do the flight control one. That'll be simple, and let's get going. So we, in order to go and use maneuver nodes, we haven't been able to yet. We can have flight planning available. The next upgrade is quite expensive, but we also increase our maximum number of contracts. So let's go ahead and see what contracts there are available. I don't see any easy ones to do before we head to the moon, so let's do that. But let's accept this Explore the Moon contract. This says the objectives here are fly by the moon, which is what we're going to do today, and gather scientific data from the moon. This doesn't mean on the moon itself, on the surface. It means just around the moon, get some data, which we can do. So let's accept that and leave and build a rocket that gets us to the moon. How about a good idea? That's a good idea. That's a good idea. So we don't have to really upgrade anything else. It's kind of helpful if you want to upgrade the VAB, but it's kind of expensive. So we don't have the money, actually, literally, we do not have the money for it right now, so that is fine. And yeah, okay, so we're good. Let's build it, man. Let's build this rocket. So this was the thing we were having before. Let's just get rid of that and start anew. We'll have a command going pretty fast when we get there, so we need to slow down and use the heat shield quite a lot. I'm going to keep this at 80. And then we're going to get rid of the monopropellant, and there we go. So we already have 9 parts for this. Don't worry, we're going to have plenty for the rest of the spacecraft. A decoupler right there, that'll be useful. And then this upper stage, so this is going to be what's returning back. Upper stage is meant to get us around in space. Therefore, we don't need any aerodynamic parts on it. This is perfectly fine. This is going to go into space. This engine will not be fired when we're in the atmosphere. It better not be, because it's really weak. It might not even be able to lift us. Let's do, probably will, but stack decoupler to separate the rest. And let's again use these FLT400 fuel tanks. I'm going to I'll use 3 of them for this stage. Once again, as before, I like the swivel fuel engine for its maneuverability, although the Reliant might be okay in this regard, especially since we are going to be using those. Keep the swivel. Yeah, I'll keep the swivel engine. So this time what we're going to be using is, before we were lifting ourselves with 2 of 4, 3, 2, 1, launch! Woo! We have liftoff, and we are going... Wait, we're going about 75 or so. That's good. Okay, we're good now. We're good now. Don't worry, guys. Don't worry about it. It's fine. It's fine. It's fine. Don't worry. It's fine. Don't worry a lot. Okay. Let's see. We're almost out of solid fuel. We're almost going too fast. Probably... Alright, we're gonna... disconnect and don't hit anything. Good, but smack into each other. Oh, only 2 of them. 1 missed. Oh, hey, that's pretty cool. Anyway, let's get the throttle just back up a bit so we can continue to build up speed. I bet you this apoapsis, yep, it's just about almost in the atmosphere, or into space. We're going to want to get this pretty high above. What this does is the higher above, the better your window is for adjusting, for kind of messing up your timing on when to do that horizontal burn. So we're just going to cut out at 80 kilometers. The higher it is, like I said, the bigger your window for doing that horizontal burn. If it's right at 70, that means you really have to be perfect on the time when you start that burn horizontally to when you finish it, and it's hard to do that. So better to give yourselves 5 or 10 kilometers of kind of wiggle room, especially when you're just starting out. So I'll do this at 80 just to kind of show you guys a bit. Of course, I can do it at 70, no problem. Perfect orbit. No. Not really, guys, okay? Not really. Sometimes I still just totally mess this up. So I think we're going to give ourselves maybe about 30 or 40 seconds prior to our apoapsis. We're going to start a burn. I want to kind of turn myself, trying to point myself in the horizon direction. We are in space now, which is good. We are almost done with this liquid fuel engine. And now, if you notice, it actually is giving us... I'm going to do the burn here. If you notice, it's giving us a time to apoapsis now, which is, I think maybe that's the patched conics, where it gives us the timing to when we're at this apoapsis. Maybe. I don't really know what that is, but anyways, this allows us to plan even a little bit better. If you remember from previous episode, this was all gray. Now it's blue, which means we can set a maneuver node. It was gray before, which also indicated a few things. So now we can look at this apoapsis and we see the time it should be kind of increasing a bit. But it's actually remaining constant, which is also fine. It's pretty good. So we're getting closer. This is fine because we're actually close to orbit. This is gonna be a decent orbit, I think. Decently circular. You kind of have a feeling about these things. This is gonna be all right. We're gonna do fine. Burn at that horizontal. Come on, burn at the horizon. Point at that horizon and burn. See, look at that. We're burning right. Well, okay. We should be pointed at the horizon effectively, but all right, there we go. We're almost in orbit now. We're getting close. We have about a few hundred meters per second to go, and we're in our upper stage, which is the Terrier liquid fuel engine. You might notice that with this Terrier engine, we're increasing our velocity a little slower than before because it is much weaker than the swivel engine. But we're almost into orbit, and we're just past our apoapsis. This is actually pretty good. Yeah, this is going to be actually quite nice. So 82. I'm going to try to get something reasonably circular, but it's not really required at all. So here we go. Come on. Come on. There we go. Periapsis is happening, and where are we? Where are you? 70. Oh, yeah, that's perfectly fine. Look at that. That's nice. Nice. Pretty close. It's close. It's within 10. It's fine. The rule is this is close. That's the rule. Okay, so we're in orbit. So we stopped. We have plenty of fuel left over. Now we have to think about what it means to go to the moon. Well, first of all, we're going to talk a bit about... Remember last episode, and I said, hey, with burning in the prograde direction, you do this. You affect the opposite side, and you push out the side of the orbit opposite to you, and you burn in the radial and the anti-radial. Those are the blue ones, either pointed toward the planet directly or away from the planet directly. That shifts your orbit this way and that way. Well, and then the inclination changes are at the purples, and they twist your orbit. Well, we're going to be able to see that when we do flight planning. So say, for example, we wanted to go to the moon. Let's just say, theoretically, we wanted to go to the moon. What we want to do is we want to push our orbit out way until it gets to the point where it's kind of matching up with the moon. And then we want to intercept the moon where it's going to be at that time. So how do we push out the opposite side of our orbit? Anyone? Burn in the prograde direction! That's right, burn in the prograde direction. Who said that? Gold star for you. Let's set a maneuver node. Let's just set it at our periapsis, add a maneuver, and see what happens when we take. You see, when I click here and say add maneuver, it gives me this coordinate thing, where you see the nodes here represented: the retrograde, prograde, radial and anti-radial. Again, I don't know which is which. And these inclination nodes, I forget what they're called, azimuthal or no, I don't remember what they're called. But anyways, when you pull one of them, it shifts out this orange thing, which is where your orbit will be, where your flight path will be if you did a burn equivalent to increasing your speed by 40 meters per second, which will take 3 seconds. It'll put you in an orbit like this, just a little higher out, and it moves your apoapsis just a little higher out. If we wanted to really move this thing out like crazy, we have to burn 580 meters a second, which is 48 seconds of burn with this current engine, and it'll put my orbit just like that. That's really cool. And notice also, we might want to plan for this thing. We might want to start turning our craft in the proper direction. And that's where you'll notice that there's this, if I turn a little bit, you'll see there's this little blue thing now, this new blue node that's not there when you don't have this visible. And that is the direction we need to point in order to go there. So this is great. This flight planning is great. Now, we know we're going to have to push our orbit out towards the moon, but where do we burn? Where do we do that burn? We have all of this here. Where do we start the flight path? And how do we know we're going to intercept the moon? Because as you see, it's kind of going to be an oval that we're going to make, and we want that oval to intercept where the moon is. How do we plan that? Well, there's kind of like a little trick to doing it. So let's look at the North Pole. Let's scroll out a bit. And what you want to do is put the moon at 12 o'clock position. The planet Kerbin is kind of in the middle, and basically in order to do this, you want to kind of go 4 o'clock, something around 4 o'clock, which is right about here. And we're going to add a maneuver. And this time we want to do a burn out, and it's going to be a burn around like 860 some meters per second. And you'll notice this thing changes eventually. Check it out. Boom! Hey, look at that change. We have a little bit of a purple area and showing the moon. This is a moon encounter. We can use this to intercept the moon. Like I said, it's going to be 860 or so, because right now, if I look at it, it's kind of intercepting in a weird way. It's going to make it hard for us to orbit the moon. So it's very important you want it to look not like this. You want it to look more like that. A little bit like that. Hold on. Let's adjust a bit. Let me just go to 865. I'm just going to set it to 865, and then we're going to see what it looks like. And now we're just going to move this thing around a bit. And to make it easy, since we're almost there, I'm gonna cut this for a second. I'm gonna speed past the area where I would have made this burn, because I want to do it on the next pass. Just because it's going to be easier. So it'll calculate this on the next pass. So get away, super dork. There we go. I don't want to see you right now. Okay, like before, we're going to set our about 4 o'clock or so, 4:30, I don't know. Go about 860 or so meters per second. Come on. Whoops. There we go. And all right, so 865. Let's see. And then we're going to take this center thing and move it around a bit until we get, that's what I wanted to see. So you kind of want to see you're going to go around to the right a bit. And just like before, we're kind of going, if this is the planet, we're going around to the right, kind of. We sort of want to do the same thing when we orbit the moon, so we want to start going in that direction. Okay, this way, as you are looking at my screen. Everything's flipped for me in this camera. So this is looking good. This is kind of far away, though. It's 165 meters, 1,000 meters away. So let's focus on the moon. And with this, now we actually see where it would come up when it was close to the moon. So what we do is we can play with this a bit, so that we're getting a little bit where I'm just pulling out the prograde vector just a bit, so that we can get a little bit under. It's not perfect there, so let me... I want it a bit differently. Let's see. I can mess with this a bit. Maybe I will, just to see. Let's go a little bit further. Yeah, that's okay. And then cut it a bit. Come on, come on. That's looking reasonable, right? There we go. Okay. Wait. Okay. Wait. Here. Let's focus again on our spacecraft and just move this maneuver node slightly so that we get a moon. There we go. That's better. Moon periapsis of 30 kilometers. That's fine. That's perfectly close. See, just a matter of playing with this and that a bit. We can focus again on the moon. We have to actually click over here because that's where it is now. And we see, yeah, 30 kilometers. That's going to be fine. We actually are at a little bit of an inclination. That's perfectly okay because that's fine. We see where we have to point ourselves, so let's go ahead and point ourselves in that direction, and now let's burn. No, of course not. We don't want to just burn our engines right now. We want to wait for the right time. So, the right time is in 23 minutes, in real time, but game time we can speed that up. In 23 minutes, we're going to be getting around to exactly here. This maneuver node is calculating all of this as if it was happening right at that maneuver node. In other words, it is calculating as if we said, guess what? We're going to somehow magically increase our velocity immediately at this time by 875.3 meters per second. Your trajectory would be this. Of course, that's not possible, right? We have to accelerate that much. And that acceleration is going to in total take 1 minute and 13 seconds. So what we want to do is have it so that it averages out to this trajectory. And how you basically do that is you do half the burn before you reach the node, half the burn afterwards. And that is how you use it to figure out the time in which you start your burn. So, in other words, when this says node estimated burn is 1 minute and 13 seconds, that's a total of, what, 73 seconds? So that means half of that is 37 seconds or so. So we're going to start burning when we're 37 seconds before we reach the maneuver node. So we'll start burning like right around here and end up when we're right on like about this area of the node. Right at the middle point is going to be where we're halfway done our burn, and at that point we should be pretty much right exactly where the maneuver node is. So that's kind of how you use maneuver nodes. They give you an estimate of what happens when you instantaneously accelerate at that point, which means you have to spread it out over 2 sections. So let's go ahead and warp to when we get to the node. We can do that in an easy way. We click somewhere over here and say warp to next maneuver. So it takes us all the way around the planet Kerbin. It should slow down and stop when we're pretty close. It'll slow down and stop when we're within 1 minute away from the node. So we're pointed in roughly the right direction. This is shifted off a little bit. So once it's at node in T-minus 6 minutes, 5 minutes, 4 minutes, 3 minutes, 2 minutes, then 1 minute, it should stop. Yeah, there you go. Say 1 minute away, we're less than a minute. And remember we said we wanted to do it half of 73 seconds, which is 37 or so seconds. And we can do it a little before then, just factoring in that I like to slow down at the end of my burn to be a little bit more with the fine control. So 40 seconds or so, maybe a little. Yeah, that's good. Okay, so let's go ahead. So as you see, we're before the node. We're going to do half. So this entire burn will take about this amount of distance traveled. Half of that time will be before the node. Half of that time is after the node we set. And this should, in theory, give us pretty much matching close-ish to this. You don't have to be perfect. The farther away, in fact, that you want to go, the less perfect you have to be, because you're not going to be able to get it absolutely correct. The longer the burn, the sort of less exact it's going to be as well. So if you have to change your velocity by a large amount, it's not going to be as precise. If you're only going like tiny amounts, then it's usually a little more precise, because it's very hard to get it exactly the same. So, as you see, we're again burning pretty much in the prograde direction, which moves our apoapsis out a lot, but it doesn't really do much to the periapsis. In fact, it's really not changing at all. The apoapsis is, however. When we're getting close like this, I'm going to slow down my acceleration, and when we get really close, in order to look to see what we have here, you see where we're approaching where we need to go. I gotta slow down a bit. We're approaching this. Our periapsis is moving a little bit. Let's get going a little more. We can cut this off if we wish, but basically I want to get pretty close because I want a closer orbit of the moon. I want something about 50 or so at least. Let's see if we can get around there. Okay, so 86, 85, blah, 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 blah. Somewhere around 50 would be fine. That's fine. Okay, 47, it's perfectly good. There we go. Okay, so now we're headed in the right direction. As you see, this will take us right around the moon. Pretty cool. So we are going to exit the influence of Kerbin and enter the sphere of influence of the moon. The Kerbal Space Program is a little bit easy on your computer. It doesn't want to kill your computer, so the dynamics or the physics is calculated based on the gravitational influence of only one body at a time. So normally, in reality, if we were going, say, from the Earth to the Moon, when you calculate trajectories, you have to take into account both the gravitational effect of the Earth and the gravitational effect of the Moon. In Kerbal Space Program, right now, it is only calculating the gravitational effect of the planet Kerbin on our trajectory. And then at this point in time, it says Moon Encounter. That means we're entering the sphere of influence of the Moon. The Moon's gravity is past a certain threshold, and now, from that point on, it's ignoring the gravitational influence of planet Kerbin and only focusing on the Moon's gravity for calculating your trajectory. So it's not exactly realistic, but it is realistically the way to use your computer's resources. So as we get close to the moon, we can actually see it. There's the planet Kerbin. There's the moon. We're getting close to it, so pretty soon we'll get a little message that says we went to the moon. Hold on, get it? Just a minute. We're almost there. This will start to count down as it'll calculate based on how. Yeah, there it is. So now it looks like we're falling toward the moon. So it's calculating based on falling toward the moon. We have initiated our first flyby of the moon and escaped the gravitational influence of Kerbin. See, that's what's going on there. So we completed the first part of our contract, which was flyby the moon. So we're on our way to flyby the moon. Now, if you notice, we're gonna fly by the moon and escape its gravity, and then go and escape Kerbin's gravity and go, I don't know, around the sun eventually. And we obviously want to capture an orbit of the moon. So how do we do that? Well, in effect, if I scroll back in here, let's look at the moon again. In fact, what happens is we're going to be going so fast by the moon that the moon isn't going to be able to grab us with its gravity. So we have to slow down. We're going to want to slow down right at the periapsis in perfect, awesome sort of calculation time. We're going to want to slow down right at the periapsis. How we slow down is point ourselves in the direction we were headed, which is the retrograde direction, and fire the retrograde rockets effectively. So burn in the retrograde direction. You see what this happens? It turns our orbit so that we are going eventually slow enough to capture an orbit. So periapsis is about 47. Let's try to get this into something that resembles a circular orbit. That should be pretty good, right? It's 40 or whatever. Let's move this around. We could be all fun with it if we want. You know what? We're going to want to be pretty awesome about this. That's fine. That's fine. There we go. That's perfect. Okay, that's going to be a perfect orbit if we manage it. We don't have to be perfect on this, but it's a 23-second burn now. And again, we follow where the blue arrow is telling us. We point ourselves in this direction. And now we want to do half the burn on one side of that node, half the burn on the other. So just like before, this is how we're going to do it. We are going to warp to our next maneuver, which is going to bring us close to the moon. Yeah! Look at that! Alright, so we're within a minute here. We're going to start the burn in, let's see, 23 seconds. So that's what, 11, 12 seconds before? Let's get there. Come on. Okay, let's do it. We almost missed it. We're going to be not exactly perfect as to where we were. Notice that our signal strength is a lot lower, so we should have probably brought ourselves a little bit of an antenna, but you don't absolutely need it. When we're on the other side of the moon, though, we won't be able to do as much. So hold on. As we see, we get our orbit pretty much circular. I'm happy with that. And now we are in a nice, reasonably circular orbit of the moon. Pretty cool. Look at that. So we get another milestone. We have entered the orbit of the moon. Nice. Nice. And now it's time, guys, because we are here, close to the moon. Let's do some science. So a crew report is in order. A crew report while in space near the moon. So it says you look at the surface of the moon and try to find a good landing space. The inside of the craters might be the best option. Yes, that's actually a good suggestion. Let's do a mystery goo observation. The goo feels right at home here. 30 science for that. That's pretty cool. We'll do a temperature logging, 24 science, and pressure logging, 36 science. Not bad. All right, that's pretty cool. So at this point in time, we can just go around and around the moon forever if we wish, but we're going to want to head home. So how do we head home? Well, there's a little bit of a trick to that too, just like there was before. You kind of want to point yourself, really, you can kind of, anywhere on this side of the orbit, kind of closer to the planet Kerbin is kind of where you want to be. And you'll be surprised that you don't have to do that much in terms of, you don't need that much fuel to get back to the planet Kerbin. The reason is because we're actually only traveling at, 500 meters per second. Note that we are 50,000 meters above the surface of the moon. If we're that close to the planet Kerbin, first of all, we can't really get into orbit around space around planet Kerbin, but the low Kerbin orbit, which is 70 kilometers, comparable to this, we have to be traveling at 2250 meters per second, so more than 4 times the speed in order to go around the planet Kerbin. That's because Kerbin is larger, has more gravity. So that means that in order to escape the gravitational influence of the moon, we don't have to go as fast, which is effectively what we're doing. We're escaping the gravitational influence of this moon, and Kerbin will grab us back. So we'll start our maneuver right around here. That's kind of where you want to go, and just keep on pushing it out. It seems wrong, because we seem to be increasing our orbit in this direction, but you'll notice that eventually we'll kind of get far enough here where this end will start to grab an orbit of the Kerbin. So this is just, we'll bring this down, we'll bring this Kerbin periapsis down, and you can super play with this to get it nice. You see right around here is about where the sweet spot is, where that periapsis starts to go nice and close. So we'll continue along that manner, and let's see, let's get our periapsis. 42 is a little high, but anywhere around 30 something is pretty good. It's okay. So we'll go ahead and plan our burn there. It's a 17-second burn. It's not much. We have oodles of fuel. We have oodles of fuel left over. So way overpacked the fuel for this one. Let's go ahead. Let's go around the dark side of the moon, and we see our signal strength cut off. And that line to Kerbin was is indicating the communications signal, which is red, meaning it is kind of low. And as we get close here, we don't have to be exact. This is one of the burns where it really doesn't matter how close you are to this. We can start burning here if we want. We'll get there eventually. If you're really low on fuel and have a concern, then you should maybe take that into account. But we have tons of fuel. We probably should have spent. Well, that's fine. We probably should spend the fuel that we have to reduce our speed as we're entering the Kerbin atmosphere, but let's go ahead and do this entry. I hope we'll be okay with it, but yeah, I hope it'll be all right. All right, so let's wait until this gets about 1 million or so. Hold on. It goes down pretty darn quick, as you see. Here we go. So under 200, under 100. This puts us in the atmosphere, but if it's not low enough, what'll happen is you'll actually go in the atmosphere and skip off, and then you'll still probably have an orbit around Kerbin, and it'll slowly decay. We don't quite have enough heat shield to decay a bunch of orbits, so let's just set it about 35 or so. We should be okay with that. It's an inclination that we're entering kind of at an inclined angle. That's okay, perfectly fine. So that's awesome. So let's go ahead out, ready to exit the atmosphere, or I'm sorry, ready to exit the gravitational influence of the moon. But right before we do, we're going to do more science, because this is space high above the moon. It's a different place, so we're going to do our other science experiments here. This is observation while in space high above the moon. 20 science for that. We get slightly less science here. 24 science here, and temperature reading of 16. Again, we still can't do EVAs in space with Jeb. We have to upgrade the astronaut complex. Maybe we'll do that next. We'll see. But there we go. So now we're on our way back to the planet Kerbin. We have a whole bunch of fuel. We probably should use this up, and maybe we will. But let's actually do it as if we don't have a lot of fuel left over. So let's just warp to a place that is close. Oh, here we go. Yeah, there we go. A warp to a place that is reasonably close here to the planet. Whoa. Okay. I don't want to go too fast. It is very easy to overwarp. And that is okay. We're almost here. To bleed off a little speed, because we're going at 3,000 meters per second. We're going to bleed off a little speed first. I am going to point myself in more or less a retrograde direction. I'm going to put myself actually in between the retrograde and this blue thing right here. And we're just going to burn right here. We're going to watch the periapsis to make sure that it doesn't get too high. But as we bleed off speed, we bleed off this right here. And you notice our speed is going down. We want to make sure we keep this periapsis low enough, so if we're a little concerned over the periapsis height, which I am now, let's burn completely retrograde. There we go, now it's going down. That's okay now. So this is a really nice... Yeah, hopefully we should land... that's actually looking really good. Okay, so we're just going to leave it at there. We're almost in the atmosphere now. We're 77 kilometers. It's just always good to bleed off some speed if you have some fuel left over, because it's a little easier on the re-entry for sure. Let's look at the ablator. Well, you know, let's get rid of that stage. And just like before, we'll check our ablator. Let's see, just like before. We can have Jeb hold a retrograde direction, or we can just sort of let this thing... since it's again balanced for the most part, we have most of the weight at the bottom of the spacecraft, which is what we want. That means it's going to naturally orient itself where the bottom is, the heaviest is going to be going down. So we're pretty stable in this case, which means that as soon as we start entering, we can actually take off the SAS and just let the craft do its thing. And it should orient itself kind of automatically for the most part. So pretty soon we'll get some atmospheric heating. There we go. As you see, the heat shield is being used up now, and I'm keeping an eye out just in case we have a little bit of... since we're going faster than we have before, these parts I'm a little worried about burning up in the atmosphere. So we'll try to keep it so that they don't, but I can't be too sure. I'll turn myself like this. Try to help it. If I can help it, I'm gonna try to stop them from burning up. But I don't know. We might have them a bit too low. Looks okay though. Looks okay for now. For now, it looks okay. If I take off SAS, what happens? Kind of bad things. So I'm not gonna do that. Yeah. As you start to edge, you'll be very surprised at how quickly you can actually burn up your parts. So the ablator is going down. Once we get a little slower, then I'll definitely take off SAS. But we'll wait until we're at least under 2,000 here. We're slowing down now, that's good. Need to be a bit careful with this re-entry. Alright, it's happening. Here we go. Ah, that's nice. That's looking pretty good. And... Alright, I think we can speed up things a bit. And what's more, I think we can take off the SAS now. Yeah, we're doing okay. Okay, so... we're safe. So this is a good re-entry. Slowing down even more. Come on, keep going. Once we're below 1,000, we'll be perfectly fine. Looks like we'll land right in this grasslands area, which is pretty awesome. Under 1,000 now. All right, so this was good. This was a really good, nice, stable, good flight. We brought back a lot of science. We went to the moon. We did a flyby, and we learned how to use our awesome little maneuver nodes. Yes, which is great. So, Jeb brought back a lot of science. What a good Jeb. We finished this contract, and now we are ready to land. So, we'll wait for us to land, but thanks for watching, guys. We will, I'll speed up this landing just a bit and get some science on the ground a little bit as Jeb comes out of his spacecraft. Good thing we're landing in the land. Come on, we're almost there. Almost there. There we go. Okay. So, right here, we're on land now. We can do an EVA report from the grasslands. We can take the data here. We can take the data here, take the data here, get back on board, do another crew report, do another barometer reading, and do another temperature reading, log the temperature, and recover this. There you go. Thanks, guys. We got a whole bunch of science from that one. Let's just see exactly how much we got. We got 190 science. The best yet. So, we'll be spending it in next episode and doing some fun things, but thanks for watching, guys. I will see you in the next episode. Take care, and bye-bye.